Hey guys, welcome back to art. I hope everybody had a fantastic week of learning and having fun. And I wanted to tell you guys what a fantastic job everybody did on their mask self-portraits. I've had such a great time looking through those. Oh my goodness, they are just amazing. So you guys all did an awesome job. Keep up the great work. I'm so proud of you guys. Okay, what we're going to be doing this week is we are going to be making our names using 1-point perspective. We are essentially going to be making it look like our names are, we're going to be putting our names on blocks, and those blocks are going to look like they are going back in space. We're using the element of art that is called space this week in order to do our project. Essentially, we're going to be creating something that looks three-dimensional, like it's going back in space on our paper, which is a two-dimensional paper. Here is the one that I did. And let's get started. I'm going to show you exactly what to do. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, so basically when we use 1-point perspective, what we're trying to do is we are trying to create the illusion of depth in our paper. So what we want it to look like is we want it to look like that we could go back into our paper. So the way that we're going to do this is by using 1-point perspective. And let me show you an example. So let's say this is my horizon line where the sky meets the ground. Think about a railroad track. When you are looking at a railroad track, this is what you typically see. Okay, it looks like the railroad track is going deep into your paper, when actually it's not, because this is a two-dimensional surface. So we just created an optical illusion. And the way that you do that is, there's lots of different ways. The way that we're going to do it today is by creating a vanishing point, which basically in this drawing would be right here, where all of the lines in the paper converge into the vanishing point. And that creates the illusion of depth. It makes it look like your railroad tracks are going deep into your paper. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing that same effect, but we're going to be making different shaped blocks with letters of our name on them. All right, so let's get started. Hey guys, so this is my take 2. I actually had filmed this whole thing and I realized that I had not turned my camera on, so I am doing this again. All right, I'm going to be a real expert at it after this is all over with. Okay, so to do our 1-point perspective names within shapes, actually, we are going to start off by thinking about our name. So my name is Mrs. Sims, which has 7 letters. And I went ahead and wrote it out, and then I looked to see which letter was in the middle of my name. And the S is in the middle. I've got 3 letters on either side of it. So that'll help me kind of get my paper spaced out instead of getting it, you don't want to have too many letters on this side and not enough on this side. You want it to be as even as possible. All right, so I'm going to start making my shapes, and I am going to make sure that I do them in the top half of my paper. Okay, when you make your shapes, you want to use mostly geometric shapes. Geometric shapes are shapes that have names, like a square, a rectangle, a triangle, a diamond, and they typically have straight edges and corners. I am going to put a couple of circles in there just to make it a little bit more interesting, but a circle is the only shape that I'm going to use that it does not have straight edges. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I'm going to make a diamond. And you can use your ruler if you would like to make your shapes. You don't have to. I'm going to use it for the diamond, and then I'll probably just freehand the rest of them. And I think an S would fit really nicely in that diamond. You want to think about, I knew that middle letter is going to be an S, so I wanted to make sure that I drew a shape that would fit an S in it nicely. Okay, now my next one is an I. I'm going to make a circle for my eye. Now, Notice how I didn't put it directly in line with my diamond. I want to vary it a little bit, so I lowered the circle a little bit so it's not on the same line as the diamond. All right, and M I'm going to make, and you can also change the direction of it. Like I'm kind of tilting this rectangle a little bit to add interest. And I'm going to make a triangle down here for my S. Okay, so now I'm moving over to this side and I have another S. I have a lot of S's in my name. In R, I'm going to make another circle. And then M, let me do a rectangle. Okay, so notice I've got, some shapes that are down lower, some shapes that are a little bit higher, some are tilted different directions, but they are all at the top or in the top half of my paper. Okay, so now I'm going to write my name inside of the shapes. You can do it however you want. If you want to do it in cursive and make it kind of fancy, if you want to make block letters, calligraphy letters, however you want to do it. I think I'm going to do mine. I'm just going to make mine in block letters. And you can make a different type of letter in each box if you want. You can do block letter in one box, cursive in the other. That might be kind of fun. However you want to do it. I'm going to do mine in some lowercase and some capital. S's are not easy to make in block letters, I've discovered. All right. Okay, so there we go. Mrs. Sims. Now we are going to add our vanishing point. This is where it gets really cool and where it really looks like your picture is going back into space. We're creating depth, the illusion of depth on our paper. So we're going to make a dot at the bottom. I'm doing mine in the center. You can do it in any part of the bottom of your paper. You can do it on the right side, in the middle, a little bit more toward the right side, just wherever you want. It just has to be close to the very bottom of your paper. Okay, and now this is where you're really going to need a ruler. You can use a straight edge if you don't have a ruler. You could even take a piece of paper and fold it and use that. It is very helpful to have a clear ruler when you're doing this so that you can see through it. But if you don't have one, that's fine. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up starting at the corner of the first shape. So this shape that has the M in it, this rectangle, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up so that it is going from that bottom corner to the vanishing point. And I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to do that with each of the corners. Okay, now the top corner is a little different because if I was going to draw a line from the top corner down to the vanishing point, I would be going through my letter M, and I don't want to do that. So if you are going to go through the letter, then you're just not going to make the line. So I'm basically just skipping that. All right, with the circle, it's a little tricky also. I'm just going to try and find the side of my circle, and then I'm going to choose, I'm going to go from one side and then I'm going to go directly across the circle to the other side, and that will be my other point that I'm going to bring down to the vanishing point. Now, this is also a little different because look, I'm starting right here and I'm bringing it down, And I'm gonna stop right there because I don't wanna go through my M. So I'm just gonna stop my line right there. And then I'm gonna go directly across and bring it on down. There we go. All right, and I'm just gonna keep doing this all the way here. I always start on my bottom edges. Okay, this one would be going through the S, so I'm not gonna make the line, and the same with this top corner. All right. Okay, the top of the diamond is the same thing. I would have to bring my line down through my S, so I'm not going to do that. All right, now I'm going to do my side of my circle. Go. All right, now on this one, I'm gonna bring it down until it hits the circle that has the eye inside of it, because I don't want to, once again, make my line going through my shape. So I'll stop it there. Now this one, all right, it's gonna be very thin. There we go. All right, so as you can see, it looks like all of these are now three-dimensional shapes, and they are going back on my paper. There's the illusion of depth now, thanks to bringing all of these lines to the vanishing point. Okay, so the next thing that I'm gonna do is take my Sharpie, and this is optional. You don't have to do this. You could just color it if you wanted to at this point, but I always like to go over my lines with a Sharpie just to make them pop a little bit more. Or you could even use a dark colored crayon or colored pencil to go over your lines, however you like to do it. But I'm gonna pause it, and I'm gonna go ahead and trace over my lines, and then we will continue in a minute. All right, so I'm back, and I actually decided to go ahead and color my 1-point perspective name after I went over the lines with Sharpie. Now, one thing that I noticed is that when I was going over the lines with the Sharpie, when I did it with my pencil, I used my ruler, so my lines I was able to keep really straight. But when I was just going over it with my Sharpie over the pencil lines, my lines kind of weren't as straight. So you might want to just use your ruler again when you're going over it with your Sharpie. It's totally up to you. I mean, mine, it's not perfect, but that's fine. All right, and then what I did was I just chose some colors that I thought would look good together. For example, I tried to choose complementary colors, which are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, and when they are next to each other, they make each other pop. So, for example, my R is purple is across from yellow on the color wheel, and you can even just look at it and tell, oh, well, purple's a pretty dark color, yellow is a pretty light color, so if I put those two together, I'm gonna create some contrast, and my R is gonna pop. So I just tried to pick colors that when they're next to each other, they make each other pop. And I did my letter, as you can see, in one color, and then the block in another color. Now, one thing that you can do if you want to is, because we're gonna, like, the light source is closer to where the letters are, and as it goes back into space, there's not as much light. So the shapes would start to get a little bit darker. So if you wanted to add a little bit of a shadow, you could do that. You could just take the same color crayon and try and make it a little bit darker. So for example, or you could take like this pink. All I did was I just made it, starting about right here, I just tried to color it really, really dark. So it just looks like it's getting a little bit darker as it's going away from you in space. Now, the yellow, I had already colored it pretty dark, so I couldn't really create the effect of a shadow. So I'm gonna take crayon that's kind of similar, because orange is kind of similar to yellow. It's just a little bit darker. And then maybe just, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm just trying to add a little bit more interest. So there we go. All right, now for the orange, I'm just gonna make it as dark as I can down there, and then, all right, the green. Now I used a really light green, and I have a darker green, I think, somewhere in here. So I can use my darker green to create that shadow, and then just kind of gradually make it lighter as you go up. And my gray, that's pretty dark. I'm gonna take maybe my black crayon and just to make it a little bit darker. There you go. And the purple, I color that really dark to begin with, so it's gonna be hard. Maybe. Maybe even add a little black to that to make it a lot darker. And then this blue, I'm gonna use a darker blue on this one. All right, so there you go. There is my 1-point perspective name. I used a vanishing point to create the illusion of depth. So it looks like my letters are going into my paper and that they're coming out from space. All right, so that is the lesson for today. Some of you guys have not been posting your, did I start the camera on this thing? Oh, good. Okay. Some of you guys have not been posting pictures of your artwork in Google Classroom. That is, the Flipgrid is great because you can, your friends can all see your work, and I love having that Flipgrid. However, the most important thing is to put it in Google Classroom and submit your work, because that's what I look at to make sure that you've turned your work in. I don't really check names off on the Flipgrid to see who turned it in, but I do check the Google Classroom to see who turned in their work. So please, please, please make sure that you are turning in your work on Google Classroom. And if you want to put it on Flipgrid, that's fantastic. It's always fun to see people's work on Flipgrid, but you have to put it in on Google Classroom. All right. I guess that's it for this week, and I will see you guys next week. Have fun with this, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.